Makishima, Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Summit Tech. Summit Tech is a member and leading contributor to MEF, the Future of Messaging program. And we're excited to be here and excited to talk about the future of business messaging, and leading off today about future innovations in rich messaging with a panel of experts. From Verizon, we have Serhad Doken, from Amazon AWS Wavelength, Sebastian Dreisch, and also from Summit Tech, Nessim, who's the Chief Process Officer. So before the panel, I'd like to go through a number of slides to talk about the future innovations in rich messaging. It's an exploration of advanced and innovative applications in rich messaging, combining rich messaging with VR, eSports, IoT, connected living, all enhanced by cloud, mobile edge computing, and 5G. So a little bit about Summit Tech. So Summit Tech is a global leader in IMS and RCS, over 10 years of experience in our IMS deployments, starting on the device or the client side with RCS and VoLTE across multiple platforms for both single and dual registration, business VoLTE, as well as digital assistance and IMS. So very rich history on the client side and SDK, GSMA accredited across the board. Eventually, 5 to 6 years ago, we expanded into the infrastructure side for RCS and IMS as a cloud. Today, we offer a full IMS core with SBC, ACS, IMS, PNS, MAP, all of the major core nodes for IMS. And we have a complete chatbot solution covering RCS and RCS MAP platform. And of course, for the future, the RCS XR, extended reality, virtual reality, and alternate reality. So Summit Tech prides itself on pursuing the innovation path. So we've heard a lot about today the traditional RCS and RCS business messaging applications, mostly on mobile devices, and traditional applications like bulk messaging and advertising. So with the 5G and mobile edge cloud computing, we're able to push forward in an innovation path, still using standards, but moving RCS into new applications beyond the traditional RCS person-to-person and A2P chat for more e-commerce and m-commerce. So for example, chatbots in virtual reality, game chatbots, call centers, and kiosks. Some of these are examples that I'll go over here and show some demonstration videos. So talking about chatbot innovation beyond bulk messaging and advertising. So gaming, IoT, interactive VR chatbots. So gamifications. It's well known that brands can increase interaction through chatbot gaming, either through ad placements within a game or gamifying the chatbots and their offerings. With advanced customer care, we can replace RBM chatbots, replace the traditional call center, with RBM chatbots and RCS rich call for live agent interaction and escalation. VR 360 e-commerce and events. We can provide boutique for e-shopping, e-commerce with interactive social, e-commerce integration with VR, eSports, live video game competitions, and of course, live events such as concerts, sporting events, and conferences. Another area of advanced applications is IoT. So chatbots can be used for home automation, security, all driven through chatbots instead of applications. And we can also introduce AI into the mix. So the other area of innovation here is moving beyond the smartphone. So today when we talk about SMS and advanced rich messaging, we're all focused on the mobile device, the smartphone, but beyond the smartphone, we can envision secondary devices such as tablets. I mentioned the cellular IoT for home automation and security, connected car, customer care, ordering kiosk in a restaurant or in a retail setting, and then VR. So all of these types of devices can incorporate RCS, and Summit Tech provides SDKs for all of these types of new device types enabled with RCS. So the first example here I'd like to cover is cellular IoT. So combining two services from a mobile operator, cellular IoT and mobile connect with RCS chatbots, we can provide a complete turnkey home automation and home security solution. So let's take a look at how this works. I'll play a short video.
Once the RCS IoT chatbot service is activated, simply add devices, door locks, thermostats, sensors, cameras, lights, etc. Then access each device without requiring multiple logins across varying services. The service is accessible through the user's native messaging application, leveraging RCS Map through chatbots. Operators who deploy Summit's messaging as a platform can provide APIs supporting IoT devices accessible through RCS bots and services. Additionally, the service can be accessed through third-party devices and services such as Amazon Echo for input controls through voice commands or linked through IFTTT to enable simple web-based automated functions and orchestration, including support for connected cars, allowing the home to trigger automated actions based on arrivals or departures. Managing automation is achieved through advanced group-based services directly from within the familiar RCS app with chatbots. The RCS IoT chatbot can easily be configured to perform tasks such as home away mode, with predefined activities triggering a set of events. For example, the RCS IoT service detects when there are no users connected to the system, at which point when the last member exits the home perimeter, the service will dispatch an RCS chatbot message notifying the user of the activities the system will initiate, allowing the user to bypass or automatically complete the function without further user intervention. Thermostats enter eco mode, lights turn off or on, alarm systems arm, and doors lock. If the system detects an unauthorized entry, cameras initiate a live RCS video call, a standard technology deployed in IMS networks. Motion-detected image capture sent through RCS chatbots and an RCS notification with timestamp is sent, ensuring the message is delivered and viewed, allowing for the system to be disarmed through an AI-based biometrics validating the user at the central monitoring service or to relay data to E911 services. Home automation is not just for emergency services, but also for peace of mind living. Features such as a daughter auto-video calling mum when she arrives home can be automated by the system identifying who has unlocked a door, followed by an RCS chatbot prompting the daughter to connect with mum. Summit's RCS IoT chatbots, adding value to IMS networks.
Okay, so that was an example of using RCS and a mobile connect to enable home automation and home security. So the chatbots are actually controlling the devices, and the devices, the IoT devices, are enabled with RCS using the Summit Tech RCS SDK. So again, two new application in IoT and new device types, IoT devices within the home. Another type of IoT application is in car. So here, chatbots connected to a car. More and more vehicles these days are coming with their own cellular connection. So this is not using your mobile device and Bluetooth connecting it to the entertainment system. The car actually has a cellular connection with an IMS and RCS stack installed and can interact directly, in this example, with a drive-through burger restaurant. So moving beyond the IoT innovative application into virtual reality streaming, Audience is our platform to provide the complete event production, moderation, and handling the interaction and collaboration, so bringing in the messaging component to it as well to make all of these virtual events interactive. Of course, the e-commerce part is the chatbot. Chatbots can be used for gamification as well, but you can take this as far as your imagination goes in terms of what production value you can achieve through these types of streamed events, and combining RCS chatbots for the interactive component for P2P, as well as ADP for the e-commerce and transactions. And all of this can be powered by 5G with mobile edge computing. So providing the very high quality streams with very extremely low latency can all be accomplished using this platform. And I'll talk a little bit more about our collaboration with Verizon and AWS to make this actual commercial reality. So the Audience platform, again, moving from the home to the stadium for live sporting events. The showroom can be a fashion boutique, the 360 VR experience, to the stadium for a large concert venue, for example. So let's take an example of a retailer now moving through this digital transformation that has been really accelerated through the COVID pandemic. More and more people, of course, are turning to e-commerce and m-commerce for shopping, and the brick and mortar stores are clearly suffering here. And this is a way to bring that traffic back and the excitement back to the valuable real estate that these brick and mortar stores have. They do have the inventory, and they have the staff working in the stores, so why not take advantage of that space? So here you can set up a 360 VR camera and go live with a shopping VR experience and chatbots. We'll show a video here to show how all this works.
Welcome to Live 360 VR Shopping. With the advent of 5G, online shopping will be transformed from a flat, linear process, which is the classic website, to an exciting, immersive, interactive experience. Live stream 360-degree shopping with chatbots. Devices supporting RCS business messaging can now enable live stream shopping while chatting with friends and social media influencers or presenters just like myself, while connecting friends through social VR video calls. Retailers create RCS chatbots using their current e-commerce platform simply by publishing content through their existing partner channel process. There is nothing new to learn. Users access Live 360 streams through mobile devices or head-mounted displays, connect and interact with friends or presenters and influencers, and check out through VR chatbots. For users, they experience the real-time social and interactive aspects to shopping. It doesn't get more real and engaging. For mobile network operators, a new revenue-generating service. Welcome to...
Okay, great. So that was a demonstration of a commercial product. Again, Audience is the production platform, event moderation platform, and we'll show you how we've optimized this for 5G and mobile edge computing. Of course, the other important thing is the RCS client. So we showed that both on a traditional smartphone, but also on a VR headset. And again, our IMS SDK can be easily incorporated into the VR headset to provide the full RCS experience in terms of P2P sharing, the social aspect with friends, family, and then of course the A2P aspect, which is the chatbot for e-commerce. Now let's turn our attention to eSports. So here's an example using our Audience platform to combine a live esporting event with the virtual spectators connecting in from all over the globe, and a stream chat. So again, you have RCS-based P2P and group chat, but also you have the A2P component with chatbots for e-commerce applications or any other applications that the AI in the gaming platform requires. The example here shown has the competitors in an actual live venue with a 360 VR camera. Each of the competitors also has a camera trained on them. And then in the background is a video wall. And the video wall is a very key aspect of this because this brings in the remote participants and spectators. So here's an example of the video wall, and the VRJ, if you want to coin a new term here, not a DJ or VJ, but VRJ, can choose to feature highlighted messages or bring in chosen spectators onto the video wall and moderate the chat flow and highlight key messages. And then the connected viewers, again, they can use a smartphone or a tablet, so it's a VR event, but you don't necessarily need the VR headset. Or if you do have a VR headset, of course, that can be used with our SummitTech IMS RCS SDK stack. And the interaction of the event can be multiple different view types. You can view the game streams live directly, or you can view the venue and have a 360 view and explore the venue with all of the gamers on site. And of course, you have the live message stream. And then if you want to interact with your friends through RCS chat or video calls, that can be done all simultaneously. And again, this is all powered through IMS and RCS through the carrier network, through our IMS and RCS SDKs on the device, as well as on the VR headset. And then the audience is the production platform that delivers this VR 360 experience. A little bit about 5G and tying this into the audience platform and RCS for future innovative applications. So our audience platform is designed to be ready for 5G. In fact, more than ready for 5G. We last month made an announcement with Amazon AWS Wavelength and Verizon for commercial availability. And it's been completely optimized, taking advantage of cloud-based stitching, ultra-low latency, and bandwidth reduction of up to 80% for 8K 360 video streams. So some of the key features are very low latency, mobile edge compute capable, adaptive tiling, and live 8K streaming from 5G handheld cameras. So in terms of 5G, of course, 5G offers very high bandwidth and extremely low latency. RCS is the default message bearer for 5G, so we can count on more devices coming out as 5G commercializes and deploys globally. In order for a network to be 5G compliant and devices to be 5G, they actually have to have RCS as the standard messaging client. So that's good news for RCS. Of course, 5G also will offer cloud computing and computational offload through mobile edge computing. And some of the benefits of mobile edge computing include offering network-based personalization for user experience, reducing bandwidth, power, and compute requirements for the device, which allows for a longer battery life, and device complexity can be offloaded as well for lower cost, and higher quality user experience that's way beyond what you see today with 4G and even broadband. And with the mobile edge cloud, the cloud actually is closer now to the radio into the device. So we have further reduced latency. And creation of virtualized events, specific private RCS networks on demand is also possible with mobile edge compute. So all of this sounds very futuristic, but it's actually commercialized. So as I mentioned last month, we made an announcement with Amazon AWS Wavelength and Verizon 5G to announce commercial availability of the audience platform on Verizon's 5G network with the mobile edge compute from Amazon AWS Wavelength. Here's a diagram of the demonstration that we created with the press release and proved the complete solution, and now we're at general availability or production release. And here we had very groundbreaking performance results very sub 2-second glass to glass performance. In fact, it was around 1.2 seconds, which is definitely industry first and groundbreaking. You can see here utilization of Verizon's 5G network and the Amazon Wavelength mobile edge compute to make this all happen. So with that, I think we can start the panel discussion. I've gone through a number of different new applications, innovative application and device types for RCS, and shown how 5G and cloud mobile edge computing can enable these new types of applications. So why don't we go through and have the panelists introduce themselves. Let's start with Serhad.
Thank you, Doug. Good afternoon. My name is Serhad. I'm with Verizon Global Network and Technology CTO group, particularly focused on 5G technology development. I work with innovative companies like Summit Tech and others to build prototypes leveraging the 8 currencies of 5G as well as mobile edge computing, so that we can productize those prototypes as new services, as new offerings to different business units. As you may know, Verizon has 3 different business units: Verizon Business Group, Consumer Group, and Media Group. So I work with all the business units on the technology side for new product and service development.
Thanks, Serhad.
Oh, sorry, Doug. You go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say hello, everybody. My name's Sebastian. I'm with AWS, and I'm the global lead for the AWS Wavelength go-to-market and business development teams. So engaged with companies like Summit Tech to prove the technology and go to market in the future. I think we'll talk more about Wavelength in a little bit, so I'll leave it at that. But thank you, and thanks for having me.
Great. Ron?
Hey, everyone. I'm Ron Nessim from Summit Tech. My role at Summit Tech as Chief Process Officer is primarily acting sort of as a liaison between the innovation labs and what we're developing there, working with our customers to deploy some of these new and interesting use cases. And I also work with the standards bodies like MEF and GSMA in terms of getting some of these things pushed back into the standards and sort of, you can say, evaluated by the ecosystem for commercial availability.
Great, thanks. Well, certainly with the shift we've seen to working from home and large events being banned, this COVID pandemic has significantly accelerated the digital transformation. It seems perfect timing now for these new innovative virtual experiences that hopefully can still provide the high degree of connectedness that we all need. Let's start off with that. Maybe you can get comments from each of the panelists on your perspective.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Definitely agree with you, Doug. Now that we don't really have, or for a long time, we didn't have live sports events or live music events, enjoying those experiences in a virtual environment has become, has taken trajectory significantly. I would say normally in technology, when things take a long time, couple of years, we've seen those advances in a matter of a few months. So that's all enabled by communication technology, and we believe that high bandwidth and low latency that 5G provides enables that. And it's a multi-user experience, as you were covering in the previous slides. Even when you take gaming, just traffic on the networks with massively online user games has taken off, and we're seeing the new mediums that has been in the market. I'll call it like XR, bigger XR, AR, VR, also taking traction during the pandemic times.
Okay, and I'll add a quick comment here. I think also that there's a market demand around evolving the experience from a flat 2D experience that you see on a lot of the common platforms into something where content creators can build a true interactive experience. So they can actually create virtual worlds, create exciting and powerful entertainment pieces that go beyond what we can do with just some, for example, a simple WebEx or Zoom call. So I think that's really where our head's at in terms of what we're trying to develop and deploy into the market.
Yeah, I don't think I have too much to add, but I will say that, you know, it's probably not news to anybody. We all have experienced that innovation is accelerating. Maybe an example would be actually not from Amazon, but my wife, who works in a very traditional business, that all of a sudden, where we thought that we always have to do everything in person, we figure out within days and weeks that that's no longer possible, or sorry, that's no longer necessary. But we also see with Summit Tech what's actually possible to make that even more of an opportunity, right? So we still struggle. I think all of us still struggle with just being on you know, virtual calls and getting some cues and feeling that interaction. And I think what Doug and Ron and team are working on, that can really change that, right? So now we have to kind of, you know, learn how to transform and make the digital transformation faster. But with this opportunity, I think it'll become much easier to do so, and there'll be so much opportunity to really collaborate better. And I think I'm really hungry to see that. So that's, you know, all I can add from my perspective.
Well, Sebastian and Serhad, I mean, you guys are certainly providing us with the tools and the platforms, right? The actual 5G network, and then the cloud, and moving the cloud closer to the edge. Maybe Sebastian, you know, I've talked a lot about mobile edge compute and cloud and 5G and Wavelength. Maybe you can give us an overview of Wavelength. What exactly is Wavelength, and what does it mean to bring the cloud closer to the radio or in the network?
Yeah, I'll take actually one step back, just, you know, for everybody else to share sort of our perspective a little bit. We have heard from our customers for many years now that they would like to have access to AWS services in quote unquote more places. Now that means many different things, but the idea was basically that with the proliferation of AWS services, that customers would like to see being able to access those, you know, not just in AWS regions. And so we have done that to a degree with different AWS services that we have brought to bear that were available outside of the confines of AWS regions. But what we're trying to do with edge compute is really say, we don't want to extend a single AWS service. We want to extend the AWS cloud programming model, the tools, the SDKs, like that full rich ecosystem. And so we see lots of opportunities there by, you know, with a service called Outposts, bringing AWS services into customers' data centers for, you know, needs that they have there, bringing them into edge locations maybe even. But with Wavelength, we're doing something specific to mobile networks and pretty unique, which addresses another customer request that we have had many, many times, which is if you're on a mobile network with a device and you want to reach a, you know, an application server in the cloud, you don't just go over the internet. You go, you know, to an antenna or base station, through the mobile provider network, through an internet exchange over the internet to the closest region from there, from that internet exchange. And while that is completely sufficient for a large number, a majority of today's use cases, what our customers are really pushing us towards, you know, nascent immersive user experiences, leveraging 5G to its fullest capabilities with the bandwidth and the latency it provides, that wasn't any longer actually sufficient for what they were trying to do. And so we saw a huge opportunity in helping our customers here. And we worked with Verizon. We also worked with a few other carriers, also internationally. But we worked with Verizon and we launched AWS Wavelength, which now extends AWS regions and the cloud programming model and the consumption model and the APIs and SDKs into the mobile network edge. And that now allows for our customers to take advantage of the cloud in a ubiquitous fashion and have a much more distributed attitude towards launching their applications or, you know, placing at least components of their applications so as to serve end customers the best way possible. And that can, you know, enhance what they're doing in the cloud today. That can enable more offloading of processing from power from IoT devices, but that can enable things like your technology with Summit Tech that just wasn't possible before. And that's really what excites us is, you know, answering that call from our customers. But in essence, that's what Wavelength is. It's, you know, many, many more geographic places where you can access AWS services, but then integrate it directly into a mobile network at the mobile network edge so that you get the lowest latencies possible. And you don't have to deploy, on-premises servers everywhere anymore. Or now you can, where it wasn't even possible, take advantage of AWS in so many locations that you couldn't even serve by yourself, to also serve those truly mobile use cases. So hopefully I didn't take too much time, Doug, but that's basically what it's all about.
So, and I've heard that this conference itself is actually being powered by AWS. So, and I'm sure more than half of us are dialed in on a mobile device. So we certainly look forward to seeing this next year in 4K and VR, and hopefully using the Odeon system as well. But certainly on AWS Wavelength, and for those users in the US on Verizon's 5G. So, Serhad, maybe you could tell us about your plans for deploying MEC, what you already have available, with maybe discuss what you've done with AWS and others.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Doug. So I don't know how many people in the audience knows, but I'll just first cover like the deployment of 5G. At the end of last year, we had already announced about 30 cities on 5G. That covered, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but like some major cities like Atlanta, Denver, Dallas, Chicago, Detroit, New York, etc. And then since then, in 2020, we announced several other cities, including San Diego, San Jose, and we have a goal of getting to 60 cities by the end of 2020. So we're actively building the network. And a couple of weeks ago, in August, or a month or so ago, we announced our partnership with AWS on the deployment of Wavelength. That was initially 2 cities, Boston, where we work with you guys on the prototype of Summit Tech. I think last week, we also announced 3 other cities, Atlanta, DC, New York. So we're gonna keep building. We look at the MEC deployment holistically, and I mean it's more of deployment drives the use cases, but also use cases drive the deployments. There are many 5G use cases. A subset of those will require mobile edge computing, the ones that require low latency. Certain use cases on Mac may be okay running 4G if they don't need very high throughput. So I look at the MEC use cases that we develop from the perspective of what sort of business we're going to power. That could be geared towards consumer, that could be geared towards business. So since we were talking about messaging, I'll mention, for instance, and also Ron's comments about going from a 2D world into a 3D world. If I peel the onion on XR, let's just focus on AR. I can definitely see like a AR-based messaging service in 3D, where I can leave messages for someone at a particular location, even including XYZ coordinate. You may ask me like, why does that need mobile edge computing? Because the computation that's required to do simultaneous location and mapping and placing those objects, either with markers or without markers, these are very latency sensitive. And depending on the object, if this object is a 3D object, as complex as a hologram or a simple, it has low latency needs, and it can also have high computation needs. So that's where the importance of 5G plus MEC comes in. There are many other use cases that we're exploring, prototyping, offloading computation from devices into the edge of the network. This is any equipment where precision is very important, from robotics to drones to autonomous vehicles. So I think we're in the early stages of this journey. It's going to be a long-term journey, but it's all about that last mile delivery of data. And just like cloud computing and 4G LTE opened up new business models, within the 5G world, that last mile delivery of data is going to determine the competitive landscape. I'll pause here.
I think very good points. And I think, the whole follow on Ron's comments about 2D to a 3D world, more virtual, more online. Do you believe this will drive more social interaction on existing carrier platforms? So for example, RCS?
Definitely. I mean, I look at messaging is almost like a gateway into other things. I mean, if you look at China, there's a lot of, or even like in US, there's a lot of payments going over messaging. So you can see messaging as the nexus point of adding more and more services. In my mind, any service that can be broken down into microservices and then them communicating between each other like chatbots, etc., in a very fast fashion that needs that low latency will increase usage within the Mac computing resources, as well as the communication back and forth from the end user device to the Mac.
Yeah, makes sense. So Ron, tell us about how Summit's VR solution utilizes Mech to improve or even enable these new applications.
Absolutely. Now, the thing about Mech for us is that it's really a fundamental paradigm shift. A lot of people compare it to the way Windows took over from MS-DOS. So it's a different way of thinking, and really we're one of a handful of companies in the world today that are looking at the technology and thinking about how we can leverage it in new ways and think about cool new things we can do with it. So we're using it in the context of VR, cellular IoT, and one of the great things about it is it helps us achieve true global mobile scale. And at the same time, it also lets us do things like, for example, virtualize a complete IMS and RCS network at the edge in seconds. So example, if somebody was having a VR event, we can just spin up a complete IMS and RCS and say, here's your private network just for this event. So that's one way we're using it. But of course, the main focus has been on the VR streaming aspect. And for us, it's really about, as you said earlier, offering a personalized high-resolution stream with less on-device compute, better battery utilization, less bandwidth. The bandwidth efficiency is phenomenal. For example, we have the equivalent of a 50 megabit quality stream that gets squeezed into 10 megabits. So that's an 80% reduction in bandwidth for the same perceptual quality. And then in terms of the glass-to-glass latency for VR video, it's basically fast enough to have a real-time conversation. And I think that's one of the differentiators here, in that we could be having a conversation over a 1.2 second latency link. It's well within the ability of natural delays for speech, whereas some of the other platforms might be up in the 10s and 20s of seconds. And in that regard, being able to have that real-time interaction and participate in an event in real time makes Audience a true virtual participation platform.
And again, that's not possible unless you have this cloud computing capability at the edge of the network.
Certainly not at 8K resolutions. And we're also looking towards 12K and 16K in the near future.
So how does advanced rich messaging, in particular RCS, relate to VR and Mac? Connected living, eSports, all the examples that we went through earlier. This is future of messaging conference after all.
Okay, well, the first and most obvious thing is, of course, RCS is native to 5G devices. So in terms of delivering a seamless user experience, it helps because we're able to start the onboarding process through a chatbot. So example, let's say I'm having a VR concert tomorrow. I can just invite everybody with a chatbot message, and they can use that. They can interact with the chatbot. They can invite their friends. They can set up collaborative viewing and all that type of stuff. Even purchase tickets. And then during the event, we actually use the chatbots in VR as well. So we're able to have all types of interactions in the VR session, including the ability to purchase product, interact with the host, get more information about products. So chatbots are kind of like an underlying theme that helps connect all of the housekeeping stuff within the VR experience. And then on top of that, we also do we have a couple of other tricks up our sleeve in terms of how we connect people, not only with RCS messaging, but with RCS voice and video. So for example, you and I could be watching the football game together, and we could have an RCS voice or voice and video session going on at the same time. And then on top of that, we also have a combination of RCS and 5G with our gateway that interconnects IoT devices in the 5G space and even traditional IoT devices that are not 5G to a gateway which turns them into chatbots. So imagine that every IoT device could just have its own chatbot. It makes the communication with those IoT devices that much simpler and that much more native to the device.
Great question from the audience here from Daniel. Is there any timeline to deploy AWS Wavelength on European markets? So, and I'll tack on to that a broader question. What is the engagement and enablement model for Wavelength for mobile operators in general? That's to you, obviously, Sebastian.
Yeah, so definitely if there's an interest to partner, please reach out. I have to be a little bit vague here because we don't have public dates yet, but I will say that we have announced partnerships with Vodafone in EMEA, with Verizon in North America, with SKT in Korea, and with KDDI in Japan. So you should stay tuned on some updates there in the coming weeks, months, quarters. I have to be a little bit vague. But certainly that's very top of mind going into Europe as well, and starting to run some pilots with initial wavelength zones there. In addition to that, we're obviously having discussions with more and additional mobile network operators, but I can't disclose those to date. Again, happy to hear from anybody that would like to have a discussion.
And another audience question. I guess both to Sebastian and to Ron, will AWS Marketplace extend to mobile messaging chatbots and AI solutions?
Yeah, maybe Ron, I'll kick it over to you in just a second, but maybe I'll go over just a little bit of a boring kind of underlying piece of information that might be useful in this. So what's happening with Wavelength is in essence this. I referenced earlier AWS regions. For those on the call that don't know, or on the webinar that don't know what that is, regions are comprised of multiple what we call availability zones. Those are clustered together so that you can have, in the case of failover, different availability zones you can utilize. You can also use it for data replication. So you have durability and high availability, both in higher level AWS services, as well as in any applications you want to deploy there. What's happening with Wavelength now is that if you, as an AWS developer, come to the console and you look at an AWS region, let's say in Virginia, you don't only see the availability zones that comprise the region so that you can run your highly available architectures and applications there. You also see wavelength zones that are tethered back in a hub and spoke model into that region. So for example, in addition to the ones you had in your slide earlier, Doug, we launched actually a few more wavelength zones already with Verizon. You would see the wavelength zone with Verizon in Boston. You would see the one in New York. You would see the one in Washington, D.C. You would see the one in Atlanta. And so by that virtue, sorry for boring you with a little bit of technical implementation detail, by the virtue of having this hub and spoke model and extending AWS regions out with now additional zones directly integrated into the Verizon network, you have access to the entire AWS ecosystem. You can create a virtual private cloud that extends across availability zones and those wavelength zones, and that can be one environment. But then you can place specific components of your application or workloads into those different zones, because that's where you want to integrate into the network and serve people at low latency. So that said, hopefully not having stolen too much time, that said, those tools you're used to in AWS, some ISV solutions you're used to in AWS can natively extend out into those wavelength zones. And that's the whole idea, is to really extend the cloud and this partnership out so that you don't have to, use different solutions so that you don't have to develop a new code base that you patch, maintain, and support in different fashions, not just between the region and a wavelength zone, but also between wavelength zones, no matter if they are in one or the other network or in one or the other geography. So a roundabout way of answering it, and I'll kick it over to Ron, who'll maybe answer it more directly, but that's the idea. And so yes, there's a lot of opportunity to bring solutions that already exist in AWS and make it easy for our developers to become edge developers and leverage 5G and build those new immersive experiences, or offload processing, all those things, which is really exciting to us. That was the goal.
Yeah, so to add on to what Sebastian was saying, from the perspective of, specifically messaging, just to take mobile messaging and chatbots as an example, I think that that's going to be maybe a layer up from the cloud provider, in the sense that there are so many different ways that application developers will deploy their applications. So this is going to start to liaise into maybe some of what's happening in terms of GSMA's operator platform group, and really how the standards will work in terms of deploying these applications. So in terms of whether it would be something AWS specific, to my sort of, if I was going to look at my crystal ball for a minute, I don't think it would be so much cloud provider specific as much as built into the operator APIs that are going to drive all of this communication. But I think it will take a great advantage of the facilities that Sebastian was talking about, in terms of bringing these types of experiences to the edge, and being able to, there are some clear use cases where edge chatbots make sense. So I think that's where the two scenarios are going to cross over. Hopefully that answered the question.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Sebastian. Question for you, Serhad. So obviously your 5G network deployment is well underway, covering major cities throughout the US. There are many innovative apps beyond even the ones that I went through in my presentation, but tell us a little bit more about how your network, the 5G network, can support both the high bandwidth apps that require high bandwidth and low latency, but also IoT apps that actually don't require the bandwidth. Is 5G a fit for those as well?
Yes. So I didn't cover this at the beginning, but when we talk about 5G, we talk about 8 currencies. Obviously, the well-known as the high bandwidth or the speed. But another currency of 5G is being able to support 1 million connected devices in a square kilometer. So like today, with my kid doing education, remote education, on the same network that I'm at. I mean, today I can count anywhere from 10 to 20 devices in my home, right? So fast forward that to the next 10 years, when 5G is pervasively deployed in a major metropolitan area, not only the consumer devices, but also business-related IoT devices, it's not unimaginable to get to that density. So the difference with 5G is the ability to support that many connected devices, even though not all those devices are going to be streaming 8K videos. So when we look at 5G, we started from millimeter wave, which is the high capacity, high throughput step, but we will be using a lot of other spectrums, and then we will be jumping from one spectrum to another one, thanks to dynamic spectrum sharing, depending on the particular need of the application. Whether that application is a garbage collector sensor, if the garbage can is full or not, to someone doing VR-based shopping, co-watching, and then messaging at the same time within an 8K virtual music concert. So the network is going to be able to cover all of this. Obviously, it's a process. We're at the early days of it. And when people are thinking about 5G, they should think about it as mobile edge computing bundled into it. So it's communication plus computation inherently built to that network. So all the different needs of the applications can be satisfied with the right permutation combination.
Makes sense. Thank you. Another question from the audience. This also on IoT. So I'll just read it. I love the IoT application of RCS. You have opened a new world. But please help me to understand, do I need to pay business price, example, price per message or session, or is it included in the usual P2P service charge? So this is kind of a charging model question. Maybe Ron and
Sure, I'll take that one. I think that fundamentally the charging models are going to be up to the operators. It's still a nascent area of the space. So I think there's different charging models that may apply. Example, in some cases, you may say that all the messaging traffic is included with the cost of having the IoT device connected to the 5G RAN. So there's many different charging models, and I think it's really about deploying the technology and finding out what works in real life.
And it seems like the example that I went through in my presentation, it's an actual carrier service, the home automation, home security example. So the operator presumably would charge a service price for that home automation, home security, and the connectivity would be included in that charge. So that's one charging model there. But you're right, it's up to the operator. Any comment there, Serhad?
I mean, as you mentioned, these are upcoming services. I'm on the technology side. I don't really work on the pricing. So, I mean, there are multiple ways of doing this, obviously. I don't know if you have decided on a particular model. It could be subscription, monthly subscription, and everything thrown in, or it could be part of the service charge. And then it depends on, like, when you say IoT application of RCS, depends on like who the final user of that is. If it's a developer, could be transaction based, could be all you can eat subscription model. I think all options are on the table yet. I don't know if a final decision has been made on that.
Yeah, so far what we know is that all you can eat model seems to be the most popular one. So that's what we're pivoting towards.
Ron, maybe you could tell us a little bit about standardization for MEC in terms of the ability to go from one operator to another operator in a different region, from one cloud carrier or cloud operator such as AWS, Amazon, to, let's say, Microsoft, Azure. This leads to potential fragmentation and interoperability questions. How is this being resolved in the standards world?
Well, absolutely, it's something that's being discussed, because without a doubt, you have many different ecosystem players. So for example, you have the OEMs, you have the service providers, you have the MNOs, you have the application developers. So it's absolutely key to get everybody on the same page. And there's two main standardization efforts that are underway. One of them is the operator platform group at the GSMA, and they've been doing some great work in terms of developing APIs and figuring out ways to standardize things even across public cloud providers. And the other thing is also the Acrano Linux Foundation Edge project. So they've also been developing APIs that are going to help applications be mobile, even between different providers. So the idea is really about abstracting a lot of the underlying mechanics from the application developer and making it extremely simple to deploy these edge applications. And at the end of the day, that's something that I believe AWS has done really well, especially in the trials that we had, because we were able to take a lot of the AWS deployment scripts that we use today, and then just with a few changes, we were able to get everything up and running on the Mac in literally hours. So really great credit to the credit of AWS using the best practices that they've already got and bringing those to the MEC world. And hopefully some of that is going to come back into the standards. And that's some of the things we're advocating for in some of these groups.
Great. So we can hopefully look forward to all of this mobile edge computing capability globally standardized, no fragmentation, no interoperability issues. And if all goes well, we should start seeing this deployed at least nationally in the US this year and globally beginning of early next year, can we say? A couple nods, no dates from Amazon or Verizon, but
well, I mean, I can speak to, go ahead, Sebastian.
I was just, no, you go ahead, Ron. I'll let you go first.
Okay, I was just going to say that at least from the SummitTech standpoint, we're looking at the product as GA as of today. So even though things are still, ramping up, I think we're in a position to start having the conversations with the brands and with MNOs in terms of getting this out there and, basically maybe before a second wave of the pandemic, being ready to deliver these services. And we see that there's an importance, even before the pandemic, we've been developing this for about 2 years now. So there's a clear market need, even without the need for social distancing.
Well, another question from the audience here. In these COVID times, audience is a super proposition. Well, thank you for that. But where can I see it live? Do you have stats on usage already? Is there a timeline for deployment? So I guess we can answer that by stop by the SummitTech virtual booth here on the Umbrella platform in this conference and chat with one of the representatives, and we can certainly show you a live demonstration. And it is, as Ron said, GA, so it is running, is available on Wavelength and running on the Verizon 5G network. Maybe Sebastian, you could tell us a little bit about your experience working with the Summit audience application and how well it runs on the Wavelength platform, and the optimization that we did that I mentioned in terms of the performance, the glass-to-glass performance.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, to a degree, right? Like we take some pride, but nothing really matters without a really cool platform that leverages it and makes it all come to life. I was really impressed. First of all, like what Ron mentioned, like obviously the whole goal is to have the tools available for you to deploy and, use things like CloudFormation, automate the deployment even into wavelength zones and into the edge, just like you do in regions where either you develop or run things in production already. What really was impressive with SummitTech is that you didn't stop there, right? So first of all, you tested the 5G network, you tested the latencies, you tested the throughput, but then immediately pivoted towards, what can we do in the application stack to optimize this further? And quite honestly, like one of the things I love about the technology is that you can see all of that hard work, right? So in 5G networks, we talk about single or tens of milliseconds, depending on from where to where you measure the round trip times. But there's so much processing power and so much else that needs to happen in the application stack to actually get that number down, right, to something that's usable. And so what Ron is talking about here with the glass to glass, like there's a lot of magic happening in the application stack. And from our perspective, we just always hope that, we have the tools for you to innovate fast and to accelerate your pace of innovation. But at the end, you still have to do that work, right? And so I just want to highlight that, we try to do the heavy lifting, but the magic with SummitTech is really in that application stack, right? So I'm assuming that's sort of where you're going towards, right? Is that we had our assumptions about how we can help, but when we all saw it come together in the trials we have done, and now with multiple wavelength zones on the East Coast already in the US, and also some on the West Coast, like being able to deploy that into production is really something that we were hoping would happen before the end of the year. Well, now it's end of summer and it's already happening. So that would be my summary of our experience so far.
And I guess the good news is that as you roll out more wavelength zones, then the application has already been optimized and commercialized, so it will just run in these new zones.
Yeah, so that's the hard work now we have to do, is make sure that Ron can go wherever he wants to go, and you as well, Doug, obviously, right? But yeah, so you'll see some rolling updates there. Again, I have to be, I have to be careful with the dates, and as you know, in engineering, right, dates can somewhat change a little bit. But yeah, you should look out. Like we have, launched in August with 2 zones, and then we added 3 more in September. I don't know that we can keep that up indefinitely, but that's sort of the pace that we're looking at to really give you those options. And then, like Serhad said, a lot of hard work done on the network to actually be able to have that best experience with a 5G device on the 5G network with a wavelength zone close by. Doesn't mean that you can't use wavelength zones with 4G or without that, and you should see benefits. Of course you should. But when we talk about the really new, step function of improvement in experiences and capabilities, that's what we're aiming for. And we still have some work to do, like Serhad said, but believe me, like all of us, that are working together are really trying to make that happen sooner than later.
So we're just about out of time. Serhad, any last comments, particularly on how maybe the Verizon 5G network has really served as a great platform to provide the wavelength functionality?
Yeah, I mean, with our partnership with the AWS Wavelength, we have been able to experiment with these new use cases and iron out the value proposition with Mac. And I haven't mentioned, but we also have 5G deployment in 13 stadiums across the country. A lot of use cases we're working on, from crowd analysis to threat detection to face recognition, etc., are related to sports and stadiums and venues where you're going to see a lot of people eventually congregate in the meantime in the virtual world, exchange a lot of traffic. Most of that traffic is going to be in the moment messaging. So we are at the point of building the future today, experimenting, and once we prove this out, more locations, and for the things that are proven out, scaling it up should be much easier.
Great. Well, we're out of time, so I'd like to thank the panelists for your expertise and comments here. A couple reminders. So the next session is entitled Open RCS, the presentation of the MOU, which will start at 8:15 p.m. EST. And the other reminder is please visit all the exhibitors' virtual or e-booths, including summits. There's a lot to be seen in terms of demos and applications, and there's a live chat and messaging capability, so you can interact with the company representatives at each of these booths.
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.